I'm Heather.
And I'm Desiree.
And you're listening to
the Perpetually Overdue Podcast. Welcome to another week of the Perpetually Overdue Podcast. I'm Desiree.
And I'm Heather.
And this week we are talking about adults needing hobbies. Or do they? Yes, they do.
I think it's a fair thing to say. Hobbies are good.
I think when it comes to hobbies, I feel like people at a certain age maybe feel that is not something they need to really think about or doesn't apply to them, or maybe because life is too busy and circumstances, they think, yeah, hobbies are just not something I can afford to have, and all these different excuses or mindsets. Yeah. And so we today want to kind of knock that excuse a little bit off the shelf and go, let's think about things a little differently, and let us know what you think by the end of it. So
absolutely. I do think that as you get older, there are a lot of excuses, and it's mostly because adulting gets in the way of having hobbies. And if you do have hobbies, those hobbies get turned into potential careers or side hustles, and then you kind of lose your love for them because then it becomes work. And the quickest way to squash any sort of creative flow is to monetize it and make it into a job, unfortunately. Not always does that happen. Like, we don't make any money off this podcast, but if we did, I don't think it would change how we feel about it. Correct. Granted, we both have hobbies outside of this, so this is not like our main hobby, and we do look at this more as a job, but a job that's enjoyable.
Exactly. Which is the same thing for me with writing. Writing very much was a hobby all throughout my life, and then was something that at different times in different formats I thought about possibly trying to turn it into a career, didn't pan out. And now novel writing is something that I'm pursuing as a career. And so even still, it's such a huge passion of mine that even though I self-publish under a pen name with my co-writer, it's something that I still enjoy doing, even though it's something that is a job as well.
Yeah, and with that, it's more of like aspects of it. So with writing, you enjoy the actual writing part, but you may not enjoy the editing as much, or you may not enjoy
the business
promotion.
Side.
Yes, exactly. The promotion or the business aspect of it. So it's a give and take, but hobbies are just for you. It's not anything to monetize, not anything to make a profit off of. It gets to remain pure in a way. And you and I both have had many hobbies. I think we're collectors of hobbies, which is a very millennial thing. I've learned the biggest things with millennials is hobbies, plants, and pets. Those are like the big three that I've learned.
That's interesting.
A lot of millennials have a lot of pets, especially when the pandemic happened, because everything was shut down. So a lot of pets were being adopted. Unfortunately, after the pandemic, a lot of pets were returned to shelters, which I think is fucked up. Plants is a huge thing. I have a plant in the background that is recovering. She went through it recently, so her vines are not as beautiful and vibrant as they used to be. And then hobbies as well, particularly crafting. But I think that our generation is slightly different than, say, our parents' generation or the generation of our older siblings, Gen X, because that generation had what we call a third place. So,
I remember that term.
Yeah.
When I worked at a certain coffee shop, they used that as in that was the goal that they wanted to create.
Oh, yeah, to create a third place. It's an interesting concept, and I don't know if we have changed so much due to social media that we can't have a third place anymore. And this is kind of my theory about it. So back in the day, there was 3 main places that people would hang out: their home, their job, and then there was always that third place where you would meet up with your friends and you would hang out. Think of the show Friends and Central Perk.
Okay.
And if you know anything about that show, then you know that there's a flashback episode where before Central Perk happened, it was a bar with like pool tables and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, I forgot.
Yeah, this is like first season stuff. So their third place that was previously a bar got turned into a coffee shop, and that became their new third place. And I don't know, like a good 70 to 80% of the show is shot in that third place.
It's true, yeah.
So the thing with that is that predates social media, at least to the level of what we have now. I don't even think when that show started, MySpace or anything like that was not a thing.
No.
It developed.
We barely got AOL chat, I think, late 90s.
Right, exactly. So you kind of had to meet up with your friends at places to even see them. Texting wasn't a big thing back then because cellular phones were not what they are today.
No, we had beepers.
And then the flip phones that like didn't have any apps. It was just like T9 texting. If you don't know T9, you're probably too young to be watching this. But there needed to be a hangout place, a place where you could meet your friends and socialize. Now our socialization is done online. Not all, but majority.
Yeah.
The only way that we do get to socialize nowadays is by having a hobby that takes us out of the home, because the other thing about our generation, millennials, is we're introverts. And I'm not saying that all of us are introverts, but we tend to like to be at home. And then working remotely on top of that, a lot of people, because
especially
of the pandemic,
yeah.
It's like you just never leave your house. And then if you do go out, they're usually like one-time deals, you know?
Yeah.
When you were here in Colorado, we went to a tea room to have like a full English tea experience with the scones and the little tea sandwiches and everything like that.
I still think about that garlic cream cheese cucumber sandwich.
Everything was so
it was delicious.
And I come to find out, because I ended up going back there with Nick, they change their menu every month.
Really?
Yes, which is very smart because it entices you to come back and try the new things. But that's one of those places that it's a one-time deal. Like, it's a once in a while thing. It's not a place that you can show up to every day.
Not even weekly.
Yeah, and hang out with your friends. And even coffee shops don't have that same feel anymore. They don't feel like a place that you can go out and hang out every day. It just feels like you go in, you get your coffee, you leave. If you're there, you're probably working on your laptop or doing something solo. You rarely see people go to coffee shops to hang out and have full-blown conversations and things like that, unless you're a Christian, because we used to do that a lot when we were Christians. We used to go to coffee shops and hang out there.
Granted, it was a public venue of sorts that chaperoning was easier done because you were not encouraged to ever, like, just, especially with the opposite sex, ever hang out alone with them. So coffee shops felt like that safe space where we can just go. There's people everywhere and we can hang out, drink some really sugary coffee because we were young and didn't really know full-on coffee experience.
Yeah, and we couldn't go to bars because we didn't drink.
No.
And you do have places that have their regulars. Well, they'll come and hang out. They'll know the employees. They might either be there by themselves or they might be there with friends. But that
they're
concept,
like the 1%.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like that concept has really just sort of dwindled. And without that, our socialization happens a lot either in a small group context, like you'll go hang out with your friend and go to dinner, or you'll go meet up for coffee and maybe just be working on your separate things together. Or maybe you go and do something that is a little out of the ordinary, go see a play, or, you know, go snowshoeing. I don't know.
What is snowshoeing?
You don't know what snowshoeing is?
I live in Florida.
That is true. We won't get into it because it's not even that exciting. In my opinion, it's not that exciting. But I was trying to think of something, and that's the only thing that came to mind is snowshoeing.
Wow.
But my point
of all the things,
I know, it's Colorado. My point that I'm trying to make is that a lot of the socializing is now social media. You feel like you interact with your friends, you see your friends because you see them on your screen on your phone. And for me personally, that's a bit of a pet peeve, is friends who will send you reel after reel after reel or TikTok after TikTok after TikTok, but then won't talk to you in real life. Because I'm like, hey, let's have a phone conversation, or let's meet up if we live in the same state, or let's do a FaceTime. Like, you and I, we live in 2 different states. We will have a FaceTime. We'll watch a movie together. We just did that last week. So I think it's more about intentionality, and it's not allowing social media to replace actual socializing and relationships, because I felt like I was having a relationship with Instagram, not with the person.
Well, see, and at that time especially, you were not really into social media as much, because I had a friend who at that time, that was a huge connection. Like, in other words, we haven't seen or talked to each other for some time, but because we're getting the daily interactive reels and memes and stuff, it was like this false sense of feeling like we were still in touch in a way.
Yeah.
So I can see how it's very easy to fall into that and kind of feel like it's actually intentional friendship, but it's not at all. And so I remember there was a time when you and I had a lull, and I was actually I was like, well, you can send me memes, and you were like, no, we're not doing that.
and see, I get what you're saying for a casual acquaintance. But this previous friend that I had, we lived together. We'd known each other for over a decade. When you have that kind of relationship where you go from seeing each other all the time to then living in completely different states and wanting to maintain like some sort of semblance of what that relationship looked like, and then all they do is send you memes all the time, so much so that you can't even keep up with it. Like, I feel like it would have been my full-time job just to go through all the reels that she would send me. And it also spoke volumes about our friendship, because she would send me things that I think that she liked and not things that she thinks that I would like. Because whenever I send reels to somebody, it's always like, hey, I think that you would like this, or think that it's funny, or enjoy this.
Exactly.
She loved singing, so she would send me reels of people singing all the time, and I would listen for 2 seconds and then check out. Because I'm like, this is not... Like, this is not my shit. It's not my thing. But I do think that hobbies are a good way to get a little bit of that socialization back, especially if it's a hobby that you can do in a group setting or collectively. So, for example, I used to do bouldering, and bouldering is like rock climbing, but the wall is only about 15 feet, so you don't have a harness or anything. Nobody's belaying. And so it's just... And then if you fall, you have to like roll back on the mat in a specific way so you don't break anything.
Oh, damn. Okay.
I've never fallen, thank God. I think it's because my fear of heights just keeps me with a death grip on the wall. You know, like, not fucking going anywhere. I don't care how much my limbs are shaking from exertion.
With this fucking wall.
I've melted into the wall. But that was one that a lot of the same people would show up at that bouldering gym until you get to know people, and you would, you know, be like, let's go do it together, because it's fun to do in a group activity sense. It's fine if you go by yourself, but it's almost inevitable that somebody is going to come up to you and talk to you, especially if they see that you're maybe struggling. You're halfway through a route and you're just like, where do I go next? You'll have random people that you don't even know. They're like, right up there, that handhold up there, put your right foot, put it, you know what I mean? Like, they just want to help you and see you conquer the route and succeed. So inevitably, it's just one of those hobbies that you organically meet people. When I got to Colorado, I went to this one bookstore, and the person behind the register, people here in Colorado are super nice. Like, when they found out that we were... Yeah, when they find out that you just moved here, they're like giving you suggestions about where to go, what to do, all these things. And I found out that she did rock climbing and bouldering. And so we exchanged numbers of like, hey, when you come back, because we were there on a trip to find a place to live.
I remember, yeah.
So we hadn't yet moved. She's like, once you're here and you're settled, like, let's go bouldering together. So like, that was
That feels like that
unusual for me.
happen.
That really was. And in that same bookstore, I met the owner who was a part of a writing critique group that I ended up joining for a time. And I do want to go back to, but that all happened within the context of just going to a bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
So there are hobbies that you can do where you meet people. Nowadays, they have things where you go to a coffee shop with a bunch of people and you just read. And you can just read by yourself. And then they'll have breaks where you can either continue reading or you can talk to the people that are around you. Everybody's pretty much a stranger. So, like, you talk about your book, you talk about their book. There's knitting circles that will come together and they'll go to coffee shops and they'll just knit together and talk and whatever. So there are hobbies that you can do to be more social.
And then there's the introvert hobbies. You know, not everyone wants to be social. And that's okay. Because even though there are hindrances through the internet in regards to us not being so focused on it and it consuming our days. But luckily now people are kind of doing the virtual versions of what you just said. Yeah. So there's actually people who do reading sprints. And so they will actually all read together online. Someone's hosting a stream. And they'll be like, all right, for the next 30 minutes, let's read, guys. And then they'll come back to chat a little and be like, okay, what are you reading? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Same thing with knitting. There are people who will either focus on that specifically, going, hey, let's all do it together. So you can all chat about this like-minded activity. Or you have more like variety streams where it's like whatever you want to creatively do, whatever hobby you want to give time to for the next hour, let's do them together kind of a deal. So there are also the virtual versions. Granted, I definitely do believe that we have lost. Basically, I'll say we need to get out more. We need to go outside.
Touch grass.
We need to go touch grass because I can definitely say, as someone who is introverted, it has become way too comfortable to kind of just stay in this bubble because now everything's available online. I don't have to go out and talk to real people. Yeah. I can talk to a bunch of virtual people. I mean, they're real people, but I can talk
I was about to say, they're real people still.
Though now, don't even get me started on AI boyfriends and best friends, but that's we'll talk about that on another episode. Yeah. But, you know, obviously, like I have a bunch of online friends through the writing community. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's not the same, but it's very comfortable to just kind of fall into that. And yeah.
But also, like, I would actually put the virtual meetups in a separate category than social media, because social media, you're seeing a picture or a video of somebody took previous to that, uploaded it. You're not interacting in real time. Whereas with the Twitch streams and the virtual meetups, you're having face-to-face interaction. And a lot of the times you're having those interactions with people that live in other states who you would otherwise not get to see on a regular basis. So I would put social media like here, and then virtual meetups here, and then in-person meetups here. But I think that there's a lot of benefits to meeting virtually because, again, it exposes you to a completely different group of people. I remember Nick would do D&D, which is another hobby that kind of forces you into socializing with other people. And everybody that was in his D&D group would meet up virtually for a few hours every week on a certain day, and they would continue their campaign. And a lot of those people didn't live in the same state as Nick, so they wouldn't have been able to meet up in person. On the flip side, that same DM, for those who don't know the term dungeon master, the person who's conducting the story and sort of directing and leading the campaign, he was in Washington where we lived. So he wanted to do a one-off, one-day campaign, and he invited me and Nick to do it. It was my first time ever doing D&D, and it was a lot of fun. Now, you can do it in a way that's more comfortable for you. Some people go full out, have characters where they do different voices, they'll wear certain things, they'll act it out more. And then you have people who they'll just tell you what they're doing, like what their character does. They won't do the voice, they won't dress a specific way to match the character, all of that. So it really spans as far as like comfort level of what you're willing to do. But no matter what, it does take, like you say, stepping outside of yourself a little bit to be able to even be in that context with pretty much strangers, because I knew nobody in that group of people. To create a character and to play, act, all of these things. But there is comfort in knowing that everybody else is doing it as well. It's not just you. And you end up creating some really interesting stories. And as a writer, it kind of sparked my creativity of like, oh, this is so cool. It's almost like writing in real time. You have this plot idea, and then you have all these people who play characters, and you get to direct the story, but they as characters also get to change certain things within that story. And so you have to like think in the moment and figure out like, cool. Yeah, and it's challenging. But all that to say is he's done it both ways. He's done it in person, he's done it virtually. There are some differences, but you still get to interact with people, you still get to know them, you still get to experience who they are. I do think that virtually, for people who maybe are not the most confident, or people who are shy, it gives them an opportunity to sort of hide behind a camera a little bit and feel more at ease with interacting with people.
Yes. Now, it's interesting because if you really think about it, looking back, yes, older generations, they had the whole third place situation for social activities. But even if we really thought about it on an individual personal hobby venture, you know, we hear the typical stereotype of like the dad who is in his garage just like messing with the car and putting together parts. We have the mom in the garden, you know, doing just her little vegetables or flowers, and the person knitting in the rocking chair. They were a generation, granted life obviously has evolved since 30, 40, 50, 60 plus years ago, where maybe it did feel like life was slower. And so there was those opportunities to kind of turn your mind off in a healthy way and just do something that is very almost meditative for you. And so older generations definitely had that. And again, with life, how it's changed, granted, we did grow up in a big city, but I would say even in the smaller towns now, because of social media, we're kind of like in this constant go, go, go mind, and our minds don't quiet down. And then as adults, because of added responsibilities and stress and work and all these things, I feel like adults very much have allowed hobbies to fall to the wayside as not a necessity, definitely as a luxury. And so I want to encourage the reasons why I believe and we believe that hobbies are important and that adults should pursue finding the ones that entice them, that bring them joy, that bring them peace, that bring them just a sense of calm throughout the week and the weekends. Why would you say that people, adults specifically, need hobbies?
The biggest one is just stress relief, mental health, honestly, and self-care. I think for me, the hobbies that I engage in, like junk journaling, watercolors, knitting, which is very meditative, those are stress relievers. They spark creativity in me, but really I just feel like I am spending time with myself, taking care of myself, allowing myself to be expressive creatively, and that feels like self-care. And then the sense of weird pride that I get, especially with junk journaling, when I finish a page and I look down on it and I'm like, oh, well, this looks pretty good. I like it.
I did that.
Yeah, I have no intention of really showing it to anybody outside of Nick because he'll ask to see it, but really I would just sneak it away if I could. It's just for me, and that feels really good to have something that's just for you. It's not about anybody else, and it's something that you enjoy. That feels like self-care. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely agree. with all those points. And I think a lot of like what you said, some people may tack it on and go, yeah, well, creative people, that makes sense. I don't think so. I think anyone, if you don't consider yourself a creative person, maybe you're more analytical, maybe math is your thing or whatever. I think anyone, because of the stresses of life, even people who have a good life, we all have stress. We all have our mental health struggles, whether they're clinical or just everyday, just
Stressors,
naturally. Yeah. I think everyone needs to feel, and I think that's what I liked what you said was that taking ownership of something that feels like it's just yours. It's for no one else. It doesn't need to be monetized. It doesn't need to be shown on social media to prove you did it. Like no one has to know.
Yeah.
It's just you and that hobby, the satisfaction of doing that hobby, and the feeling you get after you spent whatever time on it and feeling good and going, okay, that was me time. And unfortunately, I think to a certain extent, social media has made some of these terms cliche now. And so people aren't taking terms like self-care seriously anymore. They don't take anything around that concept. To them, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, that's cute. Influencer stuff. And no. Exactly. No. Exactly. It's not. Just because the terms are now more common and we say them more and we talk about them, that's not a bad thing. That doesn't lessen the importance or the weight of what it means. Everyone needs to take care of themselves, not just in the practical ways. People need to take care of themselves in emotional, mental ways because that affects your health physically. And so everyone needs to allow themselves that quiet moment doing whatever it is that, you know, they enjoy. And it could be anything, guys. Anything. Doesn't have to be something that everyone else is doing. So, yeah, I strongly believe that adults definitely need hobbies. I think even if you're busy, even if life really makes it hard, because I get it. I mean, I see my mom, I see her hustle, and her days are taken up, it feels like 24/7. But eventually your body's gonna ask for something. Whether you allow it or not, your body will force you eventually to go, yeah, I'm gonna shut you down for a bit. And so for her, you know, she started watching Turkish dramas and with Spanish dub.
Man, she reminds me of my mom. For my mom, it's Korean dramas.
My mom hasn't gone that route yet, but she fell into some Turkish ones, and she was like hooked. And it was great because for her, that turned her mind off for the first time throughout the day. And that like helped her just relax. I would love for her to find hobbies where you are physically
you do something with your hands.
I think those are really beneficial. If you could find whatever that is for you, I think there's something about that that's not just the mind-numbing aspect of like self-care. There's something, I think, chemically that you're connecting when your brain and your hands are coming together to create something that brings you peace, that calms your mind. Definitely there's something to that, I believe. There's probably science.
There is. It's cognitive health, especially as you're getting older. In order to stave off things like dementia and Alzheimer's and also just a degradation of your cognitive health, it's important to do things like that. That's why I'm an advocate. I'm a little old school when it comes to certain things. Like my husband is really reliant on GPS, and I'm like, no, you need to figure out how to get to places yourself, like, because it's not just relying on GPS to get to a place you've never been before. It's using GPS every time. And I'm like, how do you not know landmarks yet? How do you not, like, I can use GPS to get someplace, and then I can find my way back on my own. Once I get familiar with where I'm living, if it's a new city, I don't want to rely on GPS because I don't want things to do the thinking for me. Because then your brain, it's like when you don't use your muscles and they atrophy. Your brain is a muscle. If you're not going to be using it, if you're going to have everything doing things for you, like, what do you think is going to happen to your brain? What are you going to say?
I don't know if you're going to remember this. There was a time you were visiting me years ago, and we were driving around, and I was using the GPS. And I remember you were like, since when do you drive like this? Like I was almost anxiously reliant on the GPS. And you're like, you didn't drive like this before. Like this wasn't you. Like you were more confident driver back in the day when we didn't have GPS. You were a very different driver than you are now. And it's wild because I remember when you said that, I thought about it after for some time, how it's true. I was such a very confident driver. There was no second guessing. I figured it out.
No.
And then suddenly I became a person that, because I started using GPS everywhere, whenever I drove, places that I'm fairly familiar with. It wasn't like I was in a new place. I grew up where we were driving, and suddenly I was second guessing myself, and I was so like, I couldn't drive without making sure, when do I turn? Okay, how many miles till the turn? I wasn't like that before that.
No, you went from being like, because if you know anything about driving in Miami, you have to be an aggressive driver. So take somebody in Miami and put them outside and they look bananas to you as far as driving goes. That was the type of driver that you were in your little Honda.
Yeah.
And just like weaving in and out, doing your thing. You never worried about if you were going to get into an accident or if you knew where the place was or missed the turn or anything like that. And then you became more timid the more that you started to use GPS. You kind of lost a little bit of that confidence of like, you knew where you were going, you're familiar with the area. So that's very interesting that you bring that up, because I did notice the difference. It's not just a cognitive thing. It's even just like a self-confidence type of thing, like knowing that you know what you know. When you rely on technology so much, it sometimes make you second guess yourself in what you're capable of. You're a badass driver. You're really good at driving.
Yeah. And we regress in some ways, because I always used to say when I was younger, I was a human phone book. Me, Dory, who had memory issues up the wazoo, but yet I could remember phone numbers like they stayed with me.
We had to.
No, we had to. I know, but I was actually really good at it.
Yeah.
Suddenly, cell phones came into the mixture. Until this day, I don't know your number by heart. I know my mom's, and that's it.
I know yours. 786. Just kidding.
It's really horrible. The muscles we stop using because we rely on technology now. So I do see your desire to go a little old school, even these days, to go, let's not lose some of that.
If you've never been to a place, use the GPS, but maybe challenge yourself and try to figure out your way back home without it. Or don't always use the calculator on your phone. Try to do mental math if you can. Or, remember, especially if it's your emergency contact, please remember their phone number. At least remember your emergency contact phone number if you remember nobody else's phone number.
Yeah, for real.
Something that you said earlier that was really important is that you do not need to be a creative person in order to have a hobby. First of all, there are tons of hobbies that don't require any artistic ability whatsoever. You mentioned one earlier, gardening. And let me tell you, I wish that I was as good at gardening and taking care of plants as some of these people that I follow on social media, because holy shit. I love plants. I love what they do for a room. I love how they clean the air. They just make everything seem more fresh. I already get overwhelmed with the amount of plants that I have now. But then I'll see pictures of people's houses and I'm like, that's so beautiful. All the plants, and they're so good at taking care of them. And I realize that's their hobby. That's their thing that they love to do. And all it takes is doing your research and trying. I will say for me, I learned how to knit by watching a YouTube video. It wasn't like, oh, I just picked up some needles and I was great at it. And I'm still not great at it. I know how to do one thing, and that's a scarf. That's it. I've never gone online, gotten patterns, whatever, because I don't do it for the purpose of like actually making things. It's more for the stress relief and stuff like that. But yeah, you were going to say something earlier.
And you know what it is also? I think it's the fear of being bad at a hobby that then people avoid even trying, because you said it's a matter of just doing some research and then just trying and then being willing to fail at it but not giving up and keep going until you become good under your standards, because it doesn't have to be what other people consider good, because that's going to look, different for every person. And
Yeah.
again, it's not for anyone else but for you. So those low stake hobbies, especially, like, I remember there was a quote I came across that said, be brave enough to be bad at something new.
Mm.
And because you and I have a tendency to give up sometimes.
ADHD.
Yeah. So I remember that like really resonated with me, because
Yeah.
I don't like being bad at something. If I'm going to start something, like you've said in the past, I want it to be beautiful the first time out. Like, it's
Yes.
perfect. It's exactly what it was supposed to look like. And that never happens.
Yeah, or you shelf it and then you're like, I'll come back to it at some point, and then you end up moving on to another hobby. And for me,
Yep.
I'm like, I want to be at least decent, but
Mm-hmm.
realistically, that's not going to be the case with a lot of the things that you're interested in. You should do it because you're interested in it
Mm-hmm.
and you want to get better, because you can get better. And I think it's also believing that you are able to grow that skill, and
Mm-hmm.
that you're not just going to always suck. And ADHD aside, I think there is a little perfectionism in there as well that also
Mm-hmm.
prevents you from pushing forward. One thing that I also wanted to talk about was hobbies for people that are in one of two categories. Either they're super busy or they don't have lots of money. Because I think that people disqualify themselves in both camps. If they don't have a lot of time, or if they don't have money to spare, that, well, then I can't have a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
You can turn pretty much anything that you enjoy into a hobby, and you don't have to spend tons of money on it. I will give you a prime example. So my husband likes to play Magic the Gathering. That's one of his hobbies. And he's able to buy tons of decks. He's able to tune those decks to the way that he wants them so that they play a certain way, hopefully, because some of it is a little bit of luck. It's depending on the cards you draw. And that's great for him that he can invest so much into that hobby. But it's also a hobby that you could buy one deck and just continue to play that deck. And because it has like 100 cards in it, and most of the time when you're playing, especially the way that we play, which is commanders, you're not even going to get through a quarter of that deck. So you can play that deck 100 different times and have a different experience every time with it. It's a one-time purchase that will cost you like $30-$40 that you can enjoy over and over and over and over and over again. Not to mention, a lot of these game stores have tables set out where you can go there and play games. They'll allow you to rent games too. So you don't have to go and purchase them. You can rent it for a very cheap cost, sit down, play with your friends. So there are ways to get around the high cost, because I get it. I think it's ridiculous how much certain things cost nowadays. Like, video games are getting more and more expensive. It's not always practical to be spending a crap ton of money. You like reading books. You have KU Unlimited so that you could read all the books you want. You're like, I like books. I'm not going to let finances stop me from being able to read the books I want. There are options. Libraries are an option. You don't even have to pay any money.
And if you can't get to a library, you can use your library card in the app, like the Libby app, and you just put your library card number in there, and there's an easy way to rent a bunch of ebooks from the library.
Go to clearance sections of art stores. You know what I mean? Like, Joann Fabrics is going out of business right now. Go, run to your nearest one. Exactly. There are ways that you can make your hobbies more affordable. And
there's a Dollar Tree.
There's there's a whole side of YouTube of DIY stuff that you can do with Dollar Tree stuff. Just because you don't have tons of money doesn't mean that you can't be creative and also have something that you can do on a regular basis. I'll never forget this one video that I saw where the guy was like, having no money is not an excuse for not having the things that you want. You just have to learn to be creative. You have to think outside of the box. Okay, maybe you can't go and get that $60 game, but maybe you can look online and see either places that you can rent the game and just play it till its completion and then give it back, or places that you can get it for cheaper. Maybe you can buy it used. There's so many different options. So there's that. Then there's also the people who are super busy, especially parents.
Yeah.
I would encourage people who have a busy schedule to carve out time for yourself regardless.
Yeah.
Because you need self-care. You need time for yourself, for your mental health. It doesn't make you a bad parent. It doesn't make you a bad whatever. If you're a caretaker to somebody, your husband, your wife, whatever, you pouring into yourself is only going to strengthen your relationships.
Yes.
Something that we said in a previous episode is that we're not supposed to actually pour into other people. They're supposed to catch our overflow. That applies in every relationship that we have in our life. If we're not giving to ourselves, then we don't have anything to give to other people. Even if it's like 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
You can put a few stickers on the paper. I don't know. Like, I've seen people in school, in lectures, knitting as their professor is lecturing. Maybe you take Uber's places, knit while you're in the Uber, or do your little hobby. Not all of them, I get, are mobile, but you can find something that you enjoy that either doesn't take a lot of time, or it's something that you can do while you're doing something else.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, agreed. So, in conclusion, I want to encourage anyone listening, whether it's you, whether it's people in your life, whether it's your family, your parents, adults need hobbies. If you listen to this episode, hopefully you can walk away feeling a little permission for yourself to go, it doesn't hurt. Let me think and try things and see, because if you don't know what those things are, like we were saying earlier, just try things that pique your interest. Try things and don't be afraid to be bad at them at first. Try things and don't give up on them because maybe you're bad at them at first. And if it's still something that piques your interest after trying it, then keep going and see where it goes. Because really, again, and I know it's cliche to say it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, but it's true.
It is.
When it comes to hobbies especially, yes, it's satisfying to have that final result moment, but really the benefit, I think, mentally and emotionally and physically of enjoying and partaking in your hobbies is the actual process of engaging in the hobby and taking that time for yourself. That is the part that I think does the real healing, not the result. So I definitely will say, go out there and find some hobbies, friends. And sidebar, what we started the episode with, also, let's all go and touch some grass. Let's get out there more. Let's try to find again that community aspect of socializing where we actually are physically engaging with new people and meeting people again. I bet that would do wonders for dating. If people got out again and actually met people in person, if you want a little incentive to do it, go out and actually make real friends again. Like, not that virtual people aren't real friends, but there is a different dynamic when you actually have in-person friendships than the ones that you do online, which are equally valuable. They're just different.
And I think you can't have that meet cute if you're not putting yourself out there and going out there. I know it's difficult as an adult to make friends. It's been difficult for me.
Yes.
A lot of the friendships that I have now are friendships that I had in my 20s or even in my teen years. I have rarely had instances where I've met people as a woman in my 30s and we've become besties and we're still besties. So I get it. It's difficult, but there are people out there that you can click with, and hobbies are one of the avenues that you can have to meeting new people. Whether it's a hobby you do by yourself or something that you do in a corporate setting, allowing yourself to have those new experiences is what matters most of all. It's going to help your mental health. It's going to help your cognitive health. There's really not a downside to it. Unless, obviously the hobby and the spending of that hobby gets out of control. As always, we want to start a conversation in the comments section of our YouTube video or on Threads or Instagram or TikTok. Share some of what your hobbies are. and why you like them, what they do for you, how they help you in whatever way. There might be some new things that we've never even heard of. I mean, I'm finding things out all the time, especially on YouTube, especially through the ASMR community. I'm watching somebody do these little Japanese stickers, and then they have like this little house, and then they just put furniture in the house, and it's all stickers, and it's, you just hear like the peeling of the sticker and the placement of it. That's like a whole thing that people do. And junk journaling was something that I didn't really know about until I started being introduced to it through YouTube. So you just never know what's out there. You could end up sparking something for somebody. Or for one of us, because we're always looking to adopt new hobbies to then stop 2 weeks later.
It's what we do. Give us all the stragglers.
So yes, friends, we want to hear about your hobbies, your interests, and we will be in the comments section responding to you guys.
So friends, please make sure you like, subscribe if you're on YouTube, comment, as she said. If you're listening to this podcast on whatever platform you're listening to, also follow, leave comments. Some podcast platforms now let you leave comments, so feel free to do that as well. And if you could leave us a review on those podcast platforms, that would be fantastic. It really helps us with the algorithm, helps others who would like our content to also find us. So friends, thank you so much for listening, and go out, find a hobby. Go explore. Explore your little heart.
Get out of here.
Yes. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.